This week I want to share 10 things that I really wish I could go back and tell myself when I first started filmmaking. Number 1, preparation saves time. For me, this just means spending some time figuring out what I'm trying to make and what I'll need to make that happen. So for example, at the moment, one of the projects I'm working on, I just uploaded a bunch of YouTube clips to Whipster, who are sponsoring this episode by the way, so I get to highlight particular parts that I wanted the actors to replicate in their performance. I think just giving them that time to prepare before the shoot will not only make a better film, but it'll also save me trying to explain everything on the day of filming while the clock ticks. It's kind of tough in those early stages when an idea is all murky and undefined, and that's why I really find it's helpful to talk to someone about the project, because then it kind of forces you to collect your ideas. And that's usually how I know if I'm prepared enough or not, is what I feel like when I'm trying to explain it to someone else. Number 2, tell stories. This is probably the most common but also somehow most vague piece of advice that filmmakers get, but I really think it's worth talking about because it's just so important. What does it actually mean to tell stories though? For me, it comes down to aiming to make films that have both conflict and honesty. If there's no conflict, then everything goes too smoothly for the characters. It's usually better to show when things are getting tough, when there's risk and a chance for failure, something at stake. But along with that, I think honesty matters too. Making stuff that only you could make, either based on things that have happened to you or just something that reflects in some way what you're going through right now. Number 3, prioritise sound. Sound is absolutely vital. I really wish I could go back and ask my younger self, is it really the best idea to mute all the audio in every clip and just chuck background music on? You know, is that really making the most of sound? And of course I tell my younger self to spend more time learning about sound and to spend more time working on the sound effects in post-production, but also I tell myself that, you know what, don't go looking at new lenses and extra fun bits of equipment before you've got a microphone. Number 4, collaborate. It's totally natural in the beginning to be a solo shooter because finding people to collaborate with can be both expensive and difficult. I've shot plenty of stuff with just me and some actors or whoever I'm filming, but as I progressed, if I could have just one person, then I would have, you guessed it, sound. And it's not entirely essential that they're a professional. The truth is that finding just anyone and giving them a 15-minute tour of how to hold a microphone and how to use a recorder, you know what, that's still going to sound better than leaving the microphone on the camera. If we can have 2 extra people, then I'd choose an assistant, someone who can help out generally, whether it's getting new batteries or whether it's, you know, helping move equipment. And again, they don't necessarily have to have professional experience. Really, just another brain, another pair of hands can be really helpful. As the projects get bigger, it's great if you can have someone on the camera and the lights. It's great if you can have someone being a first AD, looking after the schedule and making sure everyone's on task. But obviously, these kind of things progress naturally. At the moment, I'm working for the first time with an art director, who's the person in charge of props and costumes and that kind of thing. So I gave him guest access on Whipster to the folder I made for the project, as well as anyone else who's involved with the project, and that way everyone can comment on the files that I've added, as well as uploading their own stuff. For this one I'm working with my producer who's in Amsterdam, and the art director's in London, so I'm adding reference photos from the location and pointing out particular parts of the images, and then going back and forth with the art director, confirming designs and asking questions. So obviously collaborating is great, it makes things happen faster, people are better at these jobs than I am, and that's awesome, but obviously for beginners it can be expensive. And that's why I think that collaboration can be actually one of the toughest things for beginners to do. On the bright side, doing everything yourself does give you some skills and some basic level skills that you can use later on, but that really only gets you so far, and so eventually it comes down to working with friends, asking favours, and even trading favours by working on other people's projects and asking them to work on yours. Number 5, don't waste the audience's time. I think this one applies in general. It's really good to always consider what the audience is thinking, but particularly when it comes to editing. I wish I could go back and sit with myself while I was editing and just ask myself to consider, with every single second of footage and every single new cut, what does this add? What do the audience gain from seeing this part? And the truth is, if we can't see ways that it benefits the story, ways that it adds something for the audience, then it really is tempting to say, you know what, let's not see 3 different angles of that same thing happening. Let's not kind of keep every single line of dialogue in. Number 6, make use of what you've already got. This is probably the best way to simplify the logistics of shoots and also save some money so that you can divert any money you have towards collaborating with people. And the trick is to just look at what you have. Any locations you have access to, the city or town that you live in, all of those things can be implemented into your projects. And if you happen to know people who can do cool things or have access to cool places, then that can really make things a lot easier and can really kind of raise the level of your projects. Number 7, value your time. If you are pursuing filmmaking as some kind of job, then at some point you're going to have to put a price on your time. And whether that means coming up with a day rate that changes as your career develops, or whether that means just going for project by project, quoting a number. It's a really tricky thing, and I wish I could sit down with my younger self and talk them through all of the different factors that go into trying to figure out exactly how much you can charge for a project. But I reckon now there are 2 main things that it comes down to. The most important factors are how long is this project going to take, and secondly, how much work have I been getting lately. And the truth is that I can charge a lot more for a project that's going to take a long time when I'm really busy than if I'm kind of desperate for work and the project's quite straightforward. But at the end of the day, it's always a bit of a guess. Number 8, be patient. Filmmaking is not easy, and there are a lot of mistakes that just need to be made and a lot of lessons that need to be learned. And this stuff, it just doesn't happen overnight. And the thing is, I reckon finding the balance between grinding and chasing versus kind of passively waiting for things, you know, like being patient doesn't mean that you have to just sit and do nothing, but it's about acknowledging that these things take time and that what's required is just simply putting in the hours and accepting that it's not going to be instant. Now these last 2 are what I'd like to call some tough truths. So number 9 is projects will fizzle out. The truth is, sometimes clients do stop replying to emails. Sometimes investors make promises that they then change their mind on. And sometimes just life gets in the way, you know. It's happened to me so many times now that I always try and keep an open mind, even when I'm tempted to celebrate about some exciting new email I've got or shout from the rooftops about this exciting job, you know. You never are sure until the contract's signed. Some projects will never get off the ground, and you know what? That doesn't mean you're a failure. And number 10, accept that things will not go exactly as you planned or hoped. I think it's important to phrase it like that because it kind of is the one thing you can be certain of, you know, is that the film that you imagine in your head in the beginning, that is never actually going to turn out exactly, you know. Other people have different ideas, the film kind of morphs into its own way and new ideas come up and certain things aren't possible and there are happy little accidents and there are just so many things that kind of get in the way and then also help the project and take the project in a different direction. And as much as it would be nice if things just went exactly as we expected, it's just not realistic. So there we go. Obviously, right now there is no way for me to send this video back to my previous self. So in the meantime, I hope it was some interest or use to you. And as for Whipster, the tool I've been using for collaborating, there's a link in the description to a free trial in case you want to try it out. So yeah, there we go. See you soon.